right, so we're diving deep today into Diddy's legal world.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, these leaked phone calls he allegedly made while he was in jail.
Right.
Um, you actually shared a YouTube video with me that breaks it all down, and it's
Oh, yeah. I saw that.
wild. There are allegations of coded language, maybe even attempts to influence things from behind bars.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how somebody in such a high-profile position might react under that kind of pressure. The lengths they might go to protect themselves, their image.
Well, let's get into it then.
Okay.
So this video claims that Diddy was using other inmates' phone codes and three-way calling to talk to people he wasn't supposed to. I mean, that sounds like a huge legal risk.
Absolutely. It plays right into the DA's hands. You see, they're using this to argue against giving Diddy bail.
Right.
Claiming it shows he has no respect for the court's authority and that he's willing to manipulate the situation.
And then there's this whole thing about coded language. The YouTube video actually plays some clips where Diddy allegedly uses phrases like taking a road trip, needing vitamin E, and wanting his Special K cereal.
Right.
I mean, it sounds like a grocery list to me, but the video claims this is all code. Is that something you've encountered before?
Oh, absolutely. It's not uncommon in these kinds of situations. And actually, the DA has confirmed that Diddy was using coded language to communicate.
Yeah.
So while we can't say for sure what each phrase means, it's definitely a huge red flag for the prosecution.
I'm starting to feel like I'm in a spy movie here.
Yeah.
What could these phrases actually mean?
Well, taking a road trip, that might refer to his legal strategy, like navigating the charges against him.
Okay.
Vitamin E and Special K cereal, those are a little trickier, but they could be about, gathering evidence or influencing witnesses.
Oh, that makes sense. The video also connects this coded language to Diddy's very public image campaign. I mean, he's all over social media trying to, paint a positive picture.
Yeah.
And the video claims he was even giving instructions to have this positive content pushed to big media outlets like The Shade Room and TMZ.
Well, trying to control the narrative in the media, that's a pretty common tactic in high-profile cases. It's an attempt to influence public opinion, which, sometimes can have an impact on the jury. But in this case, the DA actually pointed out that Diddy was going against his own legal team's advice by doing this.
Wow. So even his own lawyers thought it was a bad move. That's not a good sign.
Yeah. Speaking of bad moves, there's this part in the video where Diddy brings up the movie Eyes Wide Shut, that creepy one with Tom Cruise.
Oh, yeah.
The one with the secret societies and all the hidden rituals. I mean, what an interesting choice of film for him to reference.
Yeah, I mean, it plays into those rumors about his freak-off parties and the whole, mystique surrounding them.
I mean, those parties are legendary. There have even been reports of these, tapes existing, possibly, with some pretty compromising footage. I'm starting to see where this might be heading. Exactly. This is where that potential for blackmail comes into play if he's referencing Eyes Wide Shut. And those parties in his calls, it suggests that, maybe he's using the tapes or the knowledge of what happened at those parties as leverage.
It gets even crazier. Diddy allegedly name drops Oprah, Ellen, and Leo in these calls, too. And he even mentions their silence surrounding his case. Is he implying that they were at these parties?
We can't say for certain, but it's definitely a detail worth considering. Their silence is pretty unusual given their connections to Diddy. Now, there could be many reasons for that, legal advice, wanting to distance themselves from the controversy. But it does make you wonder.
It's all starting to feel very cloak and dagger. And then there's this phrase, he uses worm food. He talks about keeping a sample of it. It's a little disturbing, to be honest, and the video seems to connect it to the blackmail allegations.
Well, it's definitely a chilling phrase, worm food. It implies something that's decaying, something destructive. And the fact that he mentions having a sample, it suggests that, it's something that he could use against somebody.
That makes sense. And, Cassie did provide those text messages as evidence.
Right.
Remember where Diddy was allegedly threatening to release compromising tapes?
Right.
So maybe worm food is a reference to this kind of damaging material.
It could be. Yeah, it fits.
All right. So what do we make of these names, Kit Kat and 44? That Diddy mentions? Do you have any idea who those could be?
Kit Kat seems like a code name for a woman, just from the way he talks about her. But 44, that one's more interesting. The video actually suggests it could be Barack Obama, the 44th president.
Wait, is he suggesting that Diddy has some kind of connection to Barack Obama?
It's impossible to say for sure, but it is worth noting that Suge Knight, another, big name in the music industry, has publicly claimed that Diddy actually used his influence to get someone released from prison during Obama's presidency.
So there's at least a precedent for Diddy allegedly using high-level connections to his advantage. this is getting deeper than I expected. And then there's that part where Diddy completely loses it and seemingly threatens the person on the other end of the call.
Oh, yeah, that outburst is revealing. It might suggest that Diddy truly believes he's above the law, and, that's a dangerous mindset. He could be completely underestimating how serious his situation really is.
All right, so let's pause here for a second. We've uncovered a lot already: coded language, possible witness tampering, attempts to manipulate the media, and even hints of blackmail.
You got it. And in part two, we'll explore the potential fallout from Diddy's actions and what all of this could mean for his case and his reputation. It's interesting how this outburst connects to a pattern we see sometimes with these high-profile cases.
Yeah,
People in positions of power, they start to develop this sense of invulnerability, like the rules don't apply to them.
right. And I remember in that last clip, Diddy was name-dropping Oprah. Ellen and Leo, again, even said something about sending a message on a fucking bird. If he had to, what was that all about?
Because sounds like he's trying to demonstrate just how much influence he has. Maybe even intimidate the person on the other end of the line. That mention of a bird. It could be some kind of veiled threat, maybe alluding to carrier pigeons or some other way to deliver a message discreetly.
So basically saying, look, I can reach anyone even from jail, like a power play.
Exactly. And the fact that these high-profile figures have stayed silent just adds to the mystery. I mean, there could be legitimate reasons why they're not speaking out, but you can't help but wonder if they're worried about what might happen if they do.
It definitely fuels the speculation. Are there any legal risks for Diddy for making these kinds of statements from prison?
Oh, absolutely. If the prosecution can prove that he was trying to intimidate witnesses or obstruct justice, it could really hurt his case.
Right.
The court takes this stuff very seriously. It wouldn't look good for him at all.
We talked earlier about how Diddy's lawyers were frustrated with him for going against their advice with that whole public image campaign thing. Could his actions from prison, like these calls, also hurt him legally?
It's possible it shows a blatant disregard for the legal process and could be interpreted as him not taking the charges seriously, which also undermines his credibility and makes it harder for his lawyers to build a strong defense for him.
It seems like a very risky strategy, to say the least. This whole worm food thing is still really bugging me. It's such a disturbing image, and it seems central to the blackmail allegations.
It is a powerful metaphor. Worm food suggests decay, destruction. That is something that can be used to, break something else down, eliminate it. And the fact that he claims to have a sample implies he's ready to use it if he has to.
Do you think it's possible that this worm food could be connected to those rumored freak-off tapes? I mean, those tapes could hold a lot of damaging information.
It's definitely a plausible connection. Those tapes, if they exist, they could be the key to understanding just how far this alleged blackmail scheme goes. They could contain footage or information that would be incredibly damaging to a lot of people's reputations, which might explain why everyone's staying so quiet.
It's like a puzzle, and we're trying to figure out where all the pieces fit. You mentioned earlier that the DA confirmed that Diddy was using coded language. What are some of the ways that law enforcement goes about deciphering coded language in cases like this?
Well, they might start by looking for patterns in the language, analyze the context of the conversations, any recurring phrases and potential connections to specific events or people. They'll also look for any inconsistencies in the stories that the suspects are telling.
So it's kind of like detective work, putting all the clues together to get the bigger picture.
Exactly. And in cases involving organized crime or, high-level conspiracies, they might even use informants or undercover agents to infiltrate the group and gather intelligence.
Speaking of conspiracies, what about Diddy's mentions of Kit Kat and 44? Any more thoughts on who those could be, especially 44?
Kit Kat is still a mystery to me, but that potential link between 44 and Barack Obama is interesting. We already talked about Suge Knight's claims about Diddy using his influence during Obama's presidency, so it's not totally out of the realm of possibility.
It does seem like a long shot, though. Why would Diddy be trying to contact a former president from jail? What could he possibly offer him in return for help?
That's a great question. It's possible he believes he has some information that could be valuable to Obama or that he could use his connections to benefit Obama in some way. But it's also possible that he's just desperate, grasping at straws, trying to find anyone who can help him get out of this mess.
Do you think that Diddy's alleged attempt to reach out to 44, if that's who he meant, could have any legal ramifications?
It really depends on what he was trying to get and how he went about it. If he was trying to, exert undue influence or pressure on a former president, that could definitely raise some legal and ethical red flags.
It seems like Diddy's confidence, or maybe his arrogance, is blinding him to the potential consequences of his actions. He's acting like he's untouchable, but his behavior could end up making a situation even worse.
That's a common trap that people in power fall into. They get so used to getting their own way that they lose sight of the bigger picture. They forget that their actions have consequences, and those consequences can be pretty severe.
It's amazing how this case started with leaked phone calls and has spiraled into this web of intrigue with coded language, potential blackmail, even whispers of presidential connections. It's like something out of a Hollywood movie.
It's a reminder that sometimes reality is more interesting than fiction, and that even the most powerful people can be brought down by their own choices. The choices we make, especially when we're under pressure, they can have huge ripple effects.
And in part three, we'll take a look at those potential consequences and explore what this case could mean for Diddy's future, his legacy, and the entertainment industry as a whole. So we've spent the last two parts really digging into all these allegations against Diddy, the coded language, the potential blackmail, even the possibility that he tried to reach out to Barack Obama. It's a lot to process.
It really is. This case goes so much deeper than what we see on the surface. We're talking about power dynamics, the culture of celebrity, and how far people might go to protect their image and their influence.
Makes you think about what this means for Diddy's future, personally and professionally. I mean, he's an icon in the music industry, but this scandal could really hurt his reputation.
Absolutely. His legacy is on the line here. Even if he avoids any serious legal trouble, the public might not be so forgiving. These allegations, whether they're true or not, they've already created this negative image of him in the media.
And what about his legal situation? We talked about how his behavior in jail could backfire on him if the prosecution can prove he was trying to mess with witnesses or obstruct justice. Things could get a lot worse.
Yeah, obstruction of justice is a serious offense. It basically means interfering with the legal process, which the courts see as like a direct challenge to their authority. So if the DA can convince them that Diddy's actions were obstruction, he could face even more charges, and it could even affect his sentence in the current case.
Let's say hypothetically the prosecution gets a conviction. What kind of sentence could Diddy be looking at?
It's tough to say for sure without knowing all the specifics of the charges and the evidence they present at trial, but sentencing guidelines depend on how serious the crime is and the defendant's past criminal history. So a conviction for something like witness tampering or obstruction of justice, those could carry some pretty heavy penalties, potentially even more prison time.
This whole case feels like a cautionary tale, a reminder that fame and fortune don't put you above the law.
Exactly. It shows how important accountability is no matter how rich or famous you are. Nobody's above the law, and people who think they are, well, they often learn that lesson the hard way.
Beyond the legal stuff, what kind of impact do you think this case could have on the music industry in general?
It could spark a bigger conversation about celebrity culture and the responsibilities that come with fame and influence. Maybe record labels and management companies will start looking more closely at how their artists behave and put stricter rules in place.
It could be a real turning point for the industry, pushing for more transparency and accountability.
Possibly, we might see a bigger focus on ethical behavior and a shift away from that anything goes attitude that's been around for a while. This case could inspire a new generation of artists and industry folks to really prioritize integrity and making responsible choices.
Thinking back to where we started analyzing those leaks phone calls, we've really gone down a rabbit hole. We've uncovered so much intrigue, learned about the legal system, and explored what this case could mean for society as a whole.
It's been a fascinating deep dive. It really shows you how important it is to think critically and question what you see and hear. What started as a story about some phone calls turned into something so much more complicated and layered.
To everyone listening out there, we encourage you to keep following this story as it develops. Keep asking questions, stay informed, and form your own opinions based on the evidence. This case brings up important questions about power accountability and the pursuit of justice, questions that go way beyond just the music world.